So the other day, I was listening to a classic song by Bob Marley, and I I was really struck by one particular line in the song where he said, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery, that none but ourselves can free our mind." And for now, I've heard this song many times, but for some reason, on this particular occasion, it really struck me that to try and figure out what or how far we are enslaved mentally. Now, first of all, let's try to define what slavery is, because in a traditional sense, slavery is where we are involuntarily restrained to the point where our minds are psychologically, let's say, held captive, where even if we were not chained down, we would still be afraid or still be controlled. So if we look at it in that way, I think that even today, as people, even well educated, seemingly happy, we are in fact enslaved to varying degrees. Now, the reason I say this is because we all have fear. And if we begin to analyze where that fear comes from, or what should be the nature of our fear. For example, at the very base level, I should be afraid that I would not be able to eat or have safe rest. So, at a very basic level, that base animal instinct, I should be afraid that I will not have another meal coming, or I should be afraid that I would not be safe or have a safe place to sleep. Now, in that sense, let's say people in abusive relationships, maybe they feel that they do not have a safe place to sleep. We can say that people who are in extreme cases of poverty may not be able to afford another meal, or they don't know where their other meal or next meal will come from. But I don't think that qualifies as mental slavery. That in a sense qualifies as extreme poverty or abuse. So then, well, let's say people who have a fear that no matter how hard you try to succeed, you will always fail. So no matter how hard I work, I will always fail. I will always be where I am. I will never really develop. And I have that real fear that I will always be in this situation. So let's say people who live in a poor community, or people who live in situations where they are being abused, but there seems to be no escape for them, no matter where they go or how many times they try to escape their situation. So that too can be seen as a form of slavery, mental slavery. Now, recently in today's society, or in modern society, in the West especially, or in developed nations, let's say, there is a fear that the whole system, the social structure, has the ability to come crashing down at any point in time. And there are a lot of people who live with a fear of our social fabric tearing apart. And this can be mainly seen in media. When you put on the news or listen to the news on radio or read it in the newspaper or online, a sense of fear will creep in that everything is hanging by a thread. Everything seems to be going down. Even in terms of religion, the Hindus say that we are in the age of Kali Yuga, in which there will be great calamity and sickness and disease, and the Christians have the end of times or Armageddon. So even these institutions, which are supposed to give, let's say, a ray of hope to people, seem to be predicting that we are at a point in our human evolution where great destruction is on the horizon. And all of this lends itself to an idea or even an inkling of fear. And through this fear, we seek shelter. Now, shelter in terms of social fabrics, shelter in terms of we seek shelter in religion. But it is the essence of slavery, that a slave is always fearful of the master. Even if the chains have been released from the slave would not run away, would not fight back, based on the fear that has been instilled in us. So then we can see it. We can see where we have become slave to fear, where we dare not leave or dare not seek to change our social fabric out of fear that it will collapse and fail to protect us. Another one offshot to this, which has also come about in especially the modern countries, but is also there, I think, in the lesser developed countries, is a fear of not fitting into the social fabric or being excluded from the social fabric, and so being left to fend for ourselves. It follows in the form of, let's say, status, that if we have a low status in society, I think we tend to feel that we will not be protected. This can be seen, for example, in America and in the so-called ghetto areas, or even in Trinidad and Tobago, in the high crime areas, where people feel a sense of fear because they feel they do not qualify to be protected. Educationally, people have a fear that being of low education, being of low academic achievement, that they would be rendered worthless. Even in terms of the business community, having let's say a lesser successful business, or not lesser successful, relatively successful, but in the whole ladder of success, a low business people tend to be afraid that they will not survive. So we can see across the board where fear governs us as a human being. So we can see across the board where fear governs us as human beings. But where does the fear come from? So this, I believe, is where, as referred to in the song by Bob Marley, the mental slavery. It is up to us to emancipate ourselves from that bondage of being in constant fear. And it's realistically something that we have not directly experienced, but the idea that it exists in the shadows has us in a state of constant fear. Now, I don't know if it is the place of the social fabric or the community or the group which we live. If it is the purpose of the group to assure us of being secure by us finding a place within that group. So let's say that my worth as a human being is valued within the structure of the group, and so I am a valued member of society, and I am therefore safe. Well, then opportunities begin to open to me because I have value. Now, well, then the opposite effect comes from fear, which is then I am devalued, I have no place in society, and I can be ejected from society at any point in time because I can be rendered at any point useless. And I think that somewhere along the line, we learned that it was not a natural occurrence, that we realized that. So that's my idea on mental slavery and how it comes about within us as a people. That it's a byproduct of our social environment, our political environment, our economic environment, educational environment, that it's an environmental factor. In that it's probably we did not structure it precisely to do that. It's a byproduct of the structure of the social fabric. So we need to become aware of it, aware of the effects that arise when this fear creeps in. Because only when we become aware of, well, the existence of it and the effects of it can we really liberate ourselves from the chains of fear. So I personally do not know what Bob Marley meant when he said that, but this was my thought process thinking about those two lines from his song. So I hope this probably pointed out a couple of points in terms of understanding social fear and peer pressure and how it binds us as human beings. So I hope my short presentation today proved somewhat helpful and probably brought a couple of points forward for you to consider. And I hope you find that it may even guide you along in freeing your minds from mental slavery. My name is Omkar, and I'm thanking you for joining me today on Diksha. I will see you next time.